Let's preview tonight's Spurs Wolves game and ask a question. Could Wemby be the next Wilt Chamberlain?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Springs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. And you guys are the everydayers. We appreciate you subscribing and chiming in and logging in, all that good stuff, supporting Locked On Spurs. You guys are the everydayers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You want to go to FanDuel right now, everybody, because you want to make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get themselves $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hey, what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at the final rodeo road game for your silver and black. They got Minnesota tonight, so we'll quickly preview that. Then bringing our guest, Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. We're going to be asking the question, could Wemby be the next Wilt of this era of the NBA? And Wilt Chamberlain. We'll be discussing that and then get into some of your comments, which you all have been talking about on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. So that's coming up next. But quickly, we're going to preview tonight's game, Spurs Wolves. Your Spurs come into tonight's game 11-47, and the Minnesota Timberwolves 40-17. So yeah, Spurs got themselves a tall task tonight. Again, this is the final game of the rodeo trip. Rewinding the clock, Spurs coming off a loss to the Jazz, 128-109. Wemby had 22 points, 5 blocks, and 10 rebounds. Branham had 14 points. Zach Collins had 17, and Trey Jones added 15 points and 9 assists. And for those that are on uniform watch, the Spurs will be in their Icon Edition jerseys today. That's the black jerseys. So there you go. All right, let's take a look at tonight's game. As always, we look at the opposition. So let's start off with Minnesota. Now, keep your eye on that 3 line from Minnesota. Why? Because they have recorded 8 straight consecutive games with a higher 3-point percentage than their opponents. So they're connected on the 3-point shots. And so the Spurs definitely got a key on that. Run them off that 3 line. Look, in the last game versus Utah, that was a big reason why the Spurs lost and get down pretty fast. Utah was connecting on 3s. You don't want that to happen tonight versus Minnesota. So keep an eye on that. Also, keep an eye on the scoreboard. The Wolves are 15-2 when they're leading in their gym after the first period. So they're nearly unbeatable. So Spurs got to come out strong. They should be the aggressors. Take that lead away from Minnesota heading into the second period. Hopefully that'll help the Spurs at least get their second win, crossing fingers, on the rodeo road trip. Now, the recent history between the Spurs and Wolves, at least in Minnesota, has not been kind to San Antonio. The Spurs have won 2 straight games at home versus the Spurs. So hopefully the Spurs can snap that losing streak tonight in Minnesota. Now, look at the Spurs. So what are the things you need to be looking for? Well, let's start off with turnovers. So Spurs have not been careful with the ball in the last 2 games. They've recorded 2 straight games of more turnovers than their opposition. Young team can't afford to be giving up easy points like that or wasting away possessions. Watch that tonight. And then finally, the boards. The Spurs have been out rebounded in the last 2 games. So, yeah, Wemby's doing all he can, but he'll need a lot more help on that boards. Second chance opportunities, just create just basic opportunity, offensively or defensive rebounding. Doesn't matter. Just clean up the boards tonight. So those are a few things you got to watch for in tonight's game, Spurs Wolves. All right, coming up next, Rudy Campos. We're going to be talking about whether Wemby could be this era's Wilt Chamberlain. We're talking about that and more coming up next on Locked On Spurs. But first, I want to talk about Nissan. Look, are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be lying for you just right around the corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. How about the 2024 Nissan Rogue? It's perfect for city drives, great escapes. The class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating the assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3 HD touchscreen infotainment system. Yeah, it's a 12.3-inch screen there. Also, the 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. Hey, what about the Nissan Pathfinder? Yeah, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity, advanced ability, basically a 4x4 capability. Yeah, it's so advanced, you got to get yourself the Nissan Pathfinder. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing, when an adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So, take the Nissan Rogue, the Pathfinder, the Nissan Armada. Go check it out. Go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Also want to talk about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. People, if you're in San Antonio, go to there right now. Just trust me, you'll enjoy it. Friendly staff. Proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs. Proud community member of San Antonio. And they proudly serve the best coffee you'll find in San Antonio. You need a quick caffeine pick-me-up? Try the Red Bull Infused Lightning Bolt series. I recommend adding the strawberry flavor. What about the signature drink, the Mudslinger? Got that too. You need a latte? They got that as well. They have it all only at Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. They got mini donuts, dairy alternatives, and if you don't want the big caffeine rush, they got caffeine alternatives, things that can just take it easy, like the OG OJ. I recommend that one. Trust me, if you're an 80s baby like me, you'll love it. They have it all at Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Friendly staff. Yeah, signature drinks. And they're active on social media, X, Facebook, TikTok. I mean, pick a platform there. They're at Mudslinger SATX. Follow them right now. Look, they are just your one-stop spot to go get the best coffee in San Antonio. 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, open every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you're in San Antonio, take a trip right there. You will not regret it whatsoever. Again, Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Go there right now, San Antonio. Why? Because life is too short for a bland coffee. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League, part of the Alamo City Sports Podcast. You guys are growing, Rudy.
Yeah, growing fast, man. Really, really fast. It's kind of surreal. I didn't think it was going to be this quick, but hey, good things happen, man. So that's a good thing.
Exactly. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. Make sure you do that right now. He'll talk about his show in just a few minutes. But in case you feel a little bit of a speed kind of run right now, Rudy's actually at work, and then he has to get on Sweep the League in just a few minutes. So he carved out a little bit of time for the chat, all things silver and black. But one thing that I love about Rudy is that he doesn't say it, but I think he's kind of an NBA historian. And he mentions the likes of Mark Price, Cedric Ceballos, really old school players that people may have forgotten about, but Rudy doesn't. And this fits right into his wheelhouse because we're going to talk about Wilt Chamberlain. Now, just to rewind the clock a bit, in case you haven't heard or maybe you missed it or didn't catch it, every time Wemby talks about NBA legends of the game, he does mention Wilt Chamberlain. Yes, he does say that he's watched Kevin Durant growing up and Giannis growing up, but Wilt is one of the players that he mentions. During the All-Star break, he talked about how Wilt Chamberlain was, left his mouth dropping, watching videos of him. He did an NBA kind of a social media thing, NBA players talking about their legends of the game, and he mentioned Wilt. There's kind of similarities here, but also he's been compared to, just a taller Giannis, or he's just taller Kevin Durant. So there's kind of comps here. But in my opinion, Rudy, I think Wilt Wemby comparisons are probably more spot on than maybe Wemby Durant or Wemby Giannis.
Yeah, the comparisons that you see with Wilt Chamberlain and Victor Wembanyama, it's kind of a fair comparison, but I look at it a different perspective. Where guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain came into the league, you hadn't really seen a dominant force like them on both the offensive and defensive side. Wemby's kind of the same thing. He's in the same boat here. You've got, 7'4" guy coming into the league where most 7'2" plus guys, a la Sean Bradley, George Murasam, Manute Bol, a lot of these guys, they weren't very mobile. If you remember, they, they could score every now and then, but they weren't very mobile. They were not very quick on their feet. It was really hard for them. You kind of see similarities to like Bol right now, where he's a little quicker, but he's not as fast as Wemby. He's not as crafty as Wemby. But where I see the comparison between Wilt and Victor, it's the style of play. It's the difference maker that you bring. Back then, these guys came into the league and you hadn't seen it, so you really couldn't defend it. You're kind of seeing that with Victor right now. You're getting a hybrid type version of Wilt Chamberlain. Not only is he a great defensive presence, he can also score the ball a la way Wilt can. Think about it, Jeff. Whenever he's been in the paint, it's really hard to stop. He's very crafty with the ball. Back in the day, you couldn't really stop Wilt Chamberlain in the paint. He would kind of just finger roll it or dunk it over you. So those are the similarities I see where people say it's Kevin Durant, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's because of his mobility. That's because of his shooting. You know, he can develop into a better three-point shooter. He can hit the outside jumper. With Giannis, is very crafty, gets to the basket. Victor can get to the basket. But in fair comparison, I mean, to Wilt, I see it more as we haven't seen this type of player since a Wilt Chamberlain came into the league type of presence. And you're seeing it more on the defensive side than anything.
Yeah, I think that's where I start off with is just ahead of their time. Wilt was ahead of his time. Imagine Wilt playing in today's NBA. I mean, he'd be right up there with Wemby, and Joel Embiid. I mean, he might be 1 and 2 with Wemby, but I think perhaps where maybe Wemby gets a little bit of the edge is Wilt played in an era unlike what we have now. He was not playing against the athletic bigs as we're seeing in today's modern NBA. Wemby is, Joel Embiid is a beast, but he's very mobile. There's Giannis, just athletic freak. Then there's Joker, slow of foot, but it's just crafty and and leading his team to the NBA Finals, winning the title, so on. Do you think that comparison probably stops right there? Is just they're just ahead of their time, and that's it? Because former NBA player Meta World Peace has said on record that he predicts that Wemby will break Wilt Chamberlain's scoring record of 100 points. He's predicting 101 points. I don't know if that will ever happen, Meta, but I mean, Meta's taking it to that point. Does it just really stop at ahead of their time and that's it? Or is there some legit skill set that these two guys share in commonality?
So in Wilt's time, I mean, you got to remember he was playing pretty much majority of the game. Something that you don't see a lot of NBA players do in this era is, you're seeing 25, 30, maybe 34 minutes, in the game. So when Wilt was playing, he broke, the scoring record. He had 100 points in a game. I mean, he pretty much played the entire game. You're not going to see that. And that's kind of where I see it falls a little bit short for Victor Wembanyama. He's not going to play the entire game to get into 100 points. But even at that, when Wilt was playing, Jeff, the players were a lot shorter, so it was easier for him to get to the basket, to dominate the paint, as to where Wemby's going to have to to go up against the likes of Joel Embiid, even a Giannis, a Joker, stuff like that. So it's a lot tougher to score 100 points in this era of basketball, but if anybody can do it, it probably could be a player like Victor. I mean, even don't forget another guy like Joel Embiid is capable. He saw him put up 70 points on the San Antonio Spurs this season. So it's just a matter of, when they get hot. But it's a big piece of it is, like you said, it's way before their time. You're talking about a hybrid. You're talking about getting a little bit of Joker, getting a little bit of Embiid, getting a little bit of David Robinson, a little bit of Wilt Chamberlain, a little bit of Bill Russell. And basically you just got it all together. And this is what you have, Victor Wembanyama. You're getting a player that we're probably not going to see again for quite some time. And if we are, it's going to be like, hey, this guy reminds me a lot of Victor.
Yeah. And in time, he's going to be adding maybe not at the strength of Shaq, but he's going to get stronger. And who knows? Spurs fans, you may not like to hear this, but I wouldn't mind seeing Wemby spending off season with Dream. What do you think about that? 100%. Him and Olajuwon training?
Yeah, 100%. We've talked about this on Sweep the League, and I know I've talked to you about it in the past as well. Seeing a guy, if I had to pick one guy who I would love to kind of come in and coach, Victor, it's not Timmy and it's not David. It's actually Akeem Olajuwon. I mean,
Yeah, Dream would be. Jeez.
yeah, I mean, where I think Victor lacks the most is his footwork, and who better to
Yeah.
learn from is from Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
Uh, I think you're going to probably add an additional 6-7 points a game if he was to
Oh,
work
yeah,
with
for sure.
Dream.
Yeah.
You'd give him a little bit of fadeaway. Something that we haven't seen is like a little bit of a fadeaway, a little bit of more post moves. But not only that, facing, he can front a lot of players. He can face the basket. But with Dream, he was already known like 2 or 3 steps ahead of what he wanted to do. I still think Victor's trying to figure out his game. But again, not to his dismay, it's his rookie season. So a summer with Dream, oh man, you're talking about I think 6-7 points to the average, and I mean you're talking possibly 27, 28 a game. I think if he works with Dream,
I'm okay with that. That's fine with me. Let him work out with Dream. But it is interesting too that Popovich did bring up recently that LaMarcus Aldridge has been in practices. Now,
yeah,
try not to read too much into it. It could just be, hey, I happen to be in the neighborhood. I am from Texas. He is from Dallas, I believe, right, Rudy? So, happen one of those things. But what do you think about adding LMA's mid-range? You think that'll help Wemby?
yeah, and I think he's not that far off when it comes to LMA's mid range. Where the one part of Victor's mid range game where I think he needs to improve is kind of what we just said a little while ago. It's kind of like that fadeaway. LMA had a really good low post fadeaway. It's one of those moves that as a big man, for him especially, it can't be guarded. I mean, you're talking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook that was very unguardable. Adding something like a fadeaway for Victor that can be consistent, I mean, that's something that's going to be unguardable. You don't have any player that can maybe jump as high as him, especially at 7'4". I mean, it's going to be super tough. So LMA is going to be a good addition to the Spurs, I guess, helping him, develop his game, because I think that fadeaway is going to be very, very crucial to his development.
Yeah, LMA has been on record saying that he would not mind joining the Spurs coaching staff to help train Wemby. Nothing official. Again, Bob could have just said, yeah, sometimes the guy style, Boris Diaw comes by, and but it doesn't mean he's on staff. So let's make that very clear. But yeah, but going back to Wilt and Wemby, ahead of their time, generational players, shattered records. Wemby shattering them as we speak. Seriously, there's not a game that hasn't gone by where Wemby hasn't done something that hasn't been done in the NBA for a long time or ever been done. The 5x5 games. So, for example, but Rudy, as far as projection, do you think Wemby will get to that dominant Wilt player that we saw, considering today's NBA? Or do you think what Wilt did in his time will stay in Wilt's time?
That's a great question, man. You never want to say never, but I feel more than anything that I feel Wilt's time is gonna stay in Wilt's time, and it's gonna probably stick. I don't foresee, but I'll be honest, I don't foresee Wemby getting 100 points in a game. I foresee other guys in the NBA having that opportunity to get 100 points in a game. But I think where Wilt's records are probably for that era, they're going to stay pretty intact. For Wemby, it's carving out exactly what he's doing right now. I think he's going to set some unimaginable records. I was actually going to announce, on Sweep, we're going to talk about it, but I'll give it to you on Locked On Spurs here. Is the fact that we saw a quintuple double in the high school level, I believe, from a female basketball player. So I think you're looking at that sense. He might be the first player to get one, even though I have him number 2. I actually think Joker would probably get a quintuple. I can't even say double before Wemby, but those are the 2 guys I see. So I think his records are going to actually come in time. If anything, Jeff, I think we might see a blocks record from Wemby.
Okay.
That would probably be the one that I do give him, because he's a lot more athletic on the paint, and his recovery time on defense is by far the best in the league.
Yeah. I do have him penciled down for a quad double, right? I mean, he's going to hit it sometime in his career. It's going to happen. I'm meaning Wemby. It's going to happen. I don't see it not. I'd be shocked if he has an entire career, Rudy, and he doesn't have a quad double. I mean, that would be more shocking.
Yeah.
And it would be cool too because he would become the third Spur to do that.
at
So
least we got something to brag about, right?
we got that. But a quintuple double. Here we go.
Yeah.
I can see it happening from him. Yep. So what would that be? Would that be blocks, points, assists, rebounds, steals?
Steals. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, every major category taken into effect now. If he decides to mess around and get 10 turnovers in a game, that I would never. I can't even pronounce that, so we're not even going to get into that.
well, at the rate that he's going, he needs to work on those turnovers because that's one area of his game that Wemby definitely needs to focus on. But there you have it. What do we think about Wilt and Mr. Wembanyama? You can let us know on X. Let Joe know. I'm sorry, Rudy know at Sweep the League. And let me know on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Hey, we get back. Speaking of the Locked On Spurs YouTube page, we're going to catch up on some comments that you left. A lot of disgruntled Spurs fans right now, Rudy. Let me give you the heads up. A lot of disgruntled Spurs fans. So that's coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. This show episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Make sure to go to BetterHelp right now if you're looking into online therapy. Look, sometimes you want to get things off your chest. Or perhaps you just want to keep on doing things that you're doing right and just figuring out how to keep on doing them right. Well, that's where BetterHelp comes in. So big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let all that out, especially to somebody who's unbiased in your life. So yeah, if you're thinking about online therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Look, they are designed to be flexible. They fit to your schedule. It's entirely online. You just take a quick survey and off you go. Look, sometimes we have bigger problems than just the Spurs losing record, or some players didn't step up to their max potential in the game. Look, life still goes on, and sometimes your life can get impacted, good or bad. So if you do need online therapy, give BetterHelp a try. So you want to visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA right now. Get yourself 10% off. Again, if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. And now we're going to get into your comments. What are y'all talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page? Let's get this out of the way first, Rudy. This person, I think he sought out, or he probably needs to check out BetterHelp because he definitely needs some therapy right now. And I think a lot of Spurs fans are probably pulling their hair out too. This is from TGunk82. He says 5 things to watch. He's pretty much making fun of the game previews here, but nevertheless, 5 things to watch. Here they are: Spurs losing, Spurs losing, Spurs losing, Spurs losing. Brace yourself, Rudy. This is a twist. Pop defending Kawhi. And just one more thing, I'll add a 6th thing to watch. Let's see where that is. Drum roll, please. Spurs losing again. Spurs fans are upset. And it sounds to me, at least this Spurs fan is saying that, hey, they still don't like what Pop did, telling fans to zip it when they were booing Kawhi at the Frost. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Spurs losing is probably going to be tattooed on someone's arm or chest somewhere this season because that's all pretty much you're going to see this season. I mean, I've said it a million times and I'll say it another million more. There was nothing going into the season that told me they were going to be a much better team other than Wemby added to the roster. I mean, he was going to help some, but he wasn't going to make, he was going to turn the team around to make them playoffs or anything. So it was another long season. But as far as Pop on Kawhi, to this day, Jeff, I still am upset about it. I mean, I get it. You know what? We've seen already run-ins with fans this year. Kevin Durant most recently had a Dallas Maverick game. I totally get that. You know what? You don't just pay your ticket and you're allowed to say what you want to say, do what you want to do. I'm against all that stuff. But for booing a player, a former player who fans feel slighted by, again, Pop knows what went on behind the scenes. Fans don't know. Media doesn't know what happened behind the scenes. So can you blame fans for wanting to boo Kawhi Leonard every time he comes to town? No, you can't. For me, it's like, hey, Pop, just let it be, man. Talk to Kawhi after the game. Hey, you know what? Apologies. They just have something against you. But I'll tell you what, if you came back to San Antonio, I guarantee all will be love again. So I'm still baffled at why Pop even did that. That to me, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, brace yourself too, T-Gunk. Spurs are going to probably do a lot more losing before the end of the season. So get used to it. And yeah, I agree with Rudy. The Pop should have never done that. That was a bad look. You don't. I mean, he got one of the rare times he really got cooked for that. From national media to local media, fans, everybody was really saying that was a no, 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 no.
So where was all that from Pop years ago when Kawhi came back for the first time? I mean, it just all of a sudden hit him a few years later, like, oh, don't boo Kawhi no more. I mean,
that game where he told everybody, I was there, and it was a lot. There was a lot more booing than in past visits. Now, Kawhi gets booed every time he's in San Antonio, but for some reason, this past one where Pop went off at the fans was heightened. I don't know why. It was just there were just more boos raining down on him. But even though it doesn't matter, Pop should have never done that, and it was a bad look. And he doubled and tripled down. He said he does not regret what he did. So, all right, Pop. All right,
exactly.
All right, moving right along. Next up is about the draft. Now, on yesterday's Locked On Spurs, Rudy, I spoke with Joe Garcia, and the topic was, and very limited to, should the Spurs trade out of the draft? Just trade out completely. And I said yes. Joe was more like, well, it depends on where they land. So with that being said, this is a comment from Isaiah Aguilar.
Okay.
He says, in response to the question, they just trade out completely. So short answer, no. Long answer, no, they should not. So he's saying keep it. Says it comes down to wanting to win soon or wanting to win a lot. Building a sustainable winner, a second dynasty will require measured action. Not just making trades for the sake of making trades. Of course, we can't possibly use every single pick, but we shouldn't be so trigger happy to trade them away to try to win now. I'd rather win much more later than some now. So he's saying keep it and develop. I think that's what he's saying. Whoever player you draft. Where do you stand? By the way, thank you, Isaiah, for that comment. Where do you stand on that? He's saying, Isaiah's saying no, you don't. He's keep it. Where do you land?
So we're talking about this coming Steelers draft, 2024. Okay, depending on where you land, I'm gonna go on a limb here. If you land between 3 and 6, I would say possibly keep it. If you're in the top 2, especially number 1, I'm all for trading the number 1 pick this year. It's not as valuable. So the way I say it, Jeff, is 1 through 10 or any lottery pick, you're pretty much going to not get the same type of player, but it's what kind of impact do you want? If you can get the number 1 pick and trade down in 2024, but get more assets in 2025, maybe 2026, I'm all for that right there. Because I feel that the 2025 and 2026 draft class is probably going to be a little bit better. 2025 definitely will be a lot better than 2024. This season, I mean, everyone's high on Star, and a lot of these other guys. I can't remember the other kid's name. I got it right here. Actually, let me get it real quick. Rizal Shear, Zachary Rizal Shear, and Topic's another one. You can get Topic later in the draft in that first round. So if you're number 1 or 2, I'm thinking trade out of it. Even if you trade out of the draft, no big deal. Also, I feel, where does that Toronto pick come in? If you've got that Toronto pick because it's later on in that first round, by all means, keep that pick and draft someone later. I don't see a very good player this offseason as far as draft goes that's going to make an immediate impact. They're going to make an impact, but are they going to get you to 30 wins? I don't think so. You're going to have to go get a veteran star to get you to that 25, 30 win plateau. 2025 is, like I said, that's the draft that I'm really shooting for. I'm trying to get as many assets as I can for that draft.
Yeah, for me, when I mentioned that trading out completely is simply because it'll be a younger player added to a young team already. That's what worries me. I mean, I would rather see that pick get packaged for an established veteran to come into San Antonio next season, whether it be an established point guard or a legit backup to Wemby, something to that effect. But Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it. The Spurs are positioned to play games like this. To play, hey, we can trade out because we have Wemby and we have young players and we have a buttload of cash and picks.
Yeah.
So you're good, but we're going to be talking about this in more in depth in tomorrow's Locked On Spurs, I believe. I think Jack Thompson from formerly with San Antonio Sports Star, he's going to come on. He's definitely into the college scene, so we're going to discuss that more. But do you think Spurs fans would be upset if the Spurs trade out completely out of the draft, or it just depends on what they're doing with it?
So to me, I think it depends on what they're doing with it. If you're getting so the hot commodity this summer is going to be Trae Young. I mean, you hear about the Trae Young now. If Atlanta doesn't want, they want their 2025 back. But if you refer and like don't give it back to them, and they want the 2024, I'm all for doing that. I mean, it depends on what you get for the 2024 pick. It doesn't hold as much water as people may want to lead you to believe online or something. I mean, it doesn't really hold that much water. If you get the number one pick, it's kind of one of those, it's a number one pick. Okay, we have our options of this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Who's going to make an impact? Probably nobody. But the thing too is that Spurs fans got to realize one thing, Jeff. This is the key: is that as bad of a season as the Spurs are having, and as bad of a season that they may have next year, the Spurs are probably one of the, if not the best team in the NBA as far as assets, as far as money available. And now you've got the hot commodity of Victor Wembanyama. So those days of we can't attract free agents, we can't do this. Well, you know what? You don't have to attract them anymore. You can actually trade them because you have so many assets, and you can take on some of these bad contracts that, hey, you want to Trae Young, you're going to have to take so-and-so with Trae because we want to get his contract off the books. No problem. All this cap space helps a whole lot. So Spurs fans got to realize this team is in a better position than you actually give them credit for. Don't let the record sway you. They are in a really good position right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I tip my cap to for that aspect of the rebuild is the position they're in. This whole skipping steps argument. Well, the Spurs want to do an about face and skip steps. They can do it that. They could, and they can afford a lot of the sticker prices that they're going to give. The other teams might give the Spurs. Here's the bill for fill-in all-star player's name. Okay, we got that. Barring anything ridiculous, like 3 first rounds for John Collins. No, I ain't going to do that.
Exactly.
But within reason, the Spurs can match any trade demand if they want to go that route. So there you have it. Thank you, everybody, for leaving some comments on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Rudy, before we let you go, tell us about the network, your show. How's it doing?
Yeah, so first and foremost, go to YouTube if you want to see our show Sweep the League, which is Monday through Friday it's from 2 to 3:30 in the afternoon Central Standard Time. All you got to do is search Alamo City Podcast Network. Subscribe to that. You'll see us go live, like I said, 2 to 3:30 Monday through Friday. And we talk everything. We talk a lot of old school NBA. We talk a lot of old NFL. We get into draft talk. I mean, a lot of times we have a topic, we don't even get to it because we're so deep into all these thoughts with Derek Gervin, myself, and Gio. But before I go, Jeff, I just want to show you this. I really do have the Alberto jersey that everybody
Look at that.
Was crazy.
Is that like authentic Alberto, or is that
Yeah, it's stitched. It's everything.
It's stitched everything, huh?
I did find it at a show this past weekend. So luckily, the guy was like, "Oh, just give me this for it." I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." And I've had people asking about buying it, and I don't think I'm going to sell it just yet. I think I'm going to hold on to it as a nice little relic.
I don't know. For some reason, what the first thing that popped in my mind when you just showed me like a memorabilia piece, a jersey, the 90s Mutant Ninja Turtles were, what was it, Raphael fighting Casey Jones, and he goes, what did he say? A Conseco bat. How much did you pay for it, or something like that?
I remember that. Yeah, and you know what's funny? I'm going to give you a quick story. I saw it just hanging like that, and I thought, oh man, how cool would it be to own a J.R. Reed jersey? Like, and then
you went to the J.R. Reed?
I swear to God, I thought, man, how cool would that be to own a J.R. Reed jersey? And I turned around and said, Alberto. I was like, holy cow, Alberto was number 7. Yeah, he was.
I tell you, you have that knack for remembering like obscure Spurs players. My first thought would have been Alberto. I think legit I would have said, oh, that's an Alberto jersey.
Mine was
not a J.R. Reed. Whatever happened to him?
Just kind of played himself out of the league. He was actually a really good player in the league, really good, serviceable player for the Spurs, played for the Charlotte Hornets,
Yeah.
Former North Carolina Tar Heel. So when I saw it, I thought, "Ooh, J.R. Reed, a Spurs jersey. I could definitely use that." Turn it around, see my dismay. I'm like, Oberto, I'll settle for Oberto. That's not a bad deal.
Pass. Yeah, exactly. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every day. 24/7 channel. You need that on YouTube. This Locked On Spurs, Locked On Sports Network has it. Locked On Sports Today, 24-hour, 7-day a week streaming channel on YouTube. Go subscribe right now. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to be discussing the draft. Yes, we're going to bring back Jack Thompson, formerly with ESPN San Antonio. Y'all know him. He's all about March Madness, the who's hot, what players should the Spurs pick. He's going to come on and discuss that and more. And if I were y'all, keep an eye out for later on this week, too. Very special guest is joining Locked On Spurs. And no, it's not Mikey Mendes. So it's not Mikey Mendes. But for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.